Okay, my name is Alan Journet. I'd like to welcome you to our Southern Oregon Climate Action Now monthly meeting. You can see on your screen the subject of the talk, and we'll get back to this in just a minute with an introduction and the speaker. I would like to acknowledge Rihanna Sims for the photograph of her verdant Phoenix farm, which we have been using to promote this presentation. Just a couple of quick Zoom tips. Please mute yourself now and stay muted for the duration of the program. For questions, would you open the chat screen? You can see the chat icon on the bottom of your screen probably. Open that and please type questions into the chat box. I'm sorry the type is so small that you have to really get your field glasses out to see it, but we can't control that. You have screen options. If you look at the top right of your Zoom screen, you'll see several dots and the word view. If you click on that, you can pick side-by-side speaker or side-by-side gallery. If you pick the first, you see the speaker, and if you pick the second, you see the Hollywood Squares format. As you will probably already know, this presentation is being recorded. We always like to start with a very brief acknowledgement of our historical custodians of this land. So we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land most of us are on today, the Takelma, Shasta, Klamath, and Modoc. And we pay our respects to their leaders, their elders, past, present, and emerging for the future. The format for the meeting, as usual, is going to be a presentation. This will be followed by question and answer. And again, we ask you to put your questions in the chat. And then towards the end of the program, Kathy will come back and talk to you about SOCAN and other group activities in the climate arena. Links will be available on the socan.eco/action page for activities that you might wish to get involved in as a result of Mike's presentation this evening. And so back to this slide, and again, thanks to Rihanna Sims. And now I'm going to pass the baton to Ray Seidler, our trusty regenerative agriculture soil health advisor for SOCAN. Take it away, Ray.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity tonight to welcome and to introduce our special guest presenter. I appreciate that. Our special guest presenter for the evening is Dr. Michael Badzmierowski. Dr. Badzmierowski has actually lived in Oregon for a couple of years or so, but all his educational roots are in the Northeast United States. Mike received a bachelor's degree in environmental science and management from the University of Rhode Island, then a Ph.D. from Virginia Tech University in beautiful Blacksburg, Virginia. Mike has continued his studies while living here in Oregon, working remotely as a postdoctoral research scientist from Virginia Tech. He and his team are still working on intensive evaluations of certain management practices that impact the measurement and accumulation of soil carbon. But in January of this year, Mike accepted a position with the Oregon Department of Agriculture as a soil health specialist. 1 month after Mike joined the Oregon Department of Agriculture, the United States Department of Agriculture announced an incredible $1 billion with a B national grant opportunity entitled Partnerships for Climate-Smart Commodities. That means food products that come from healthy soils, that emit fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and are sequestering carbon. And I suspect Mike's life changed abruptly with this announcement. He is leading the ODA, Oregon Department of Ag, efforts in writing the proposal that will apply for funds from that new program. And he is here this evening to share his thoughts and his plans for this proposal that he has named Producing Verified Climate-Smart Agricultural Commodities and Market Opportunities in Oregon. So let's give a virtual welcome to Mike. And I know that we're hardly able to wait any longer to hear what he has to say. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Ray. As Ray mentioned, I'm Mike Badzmierowski, the soil health specialist. This is actually a new position in the Oregon Department of Agriculture, so I'm the first to have this position here. So that's why if you haven't heard of a soil health position in the Department of Agriculture, it's because that is also brand new. I'm going to give a quick slide PowerPoint on kind of the background of this grant that I'm writing for this opportunity. And then I'll take more questions because I'm sure there's going to be many, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. All right. So as Ray mentioned, I'm calling it Producing Verified Climate-Smart Agricultural Commodities and Market Opportunities in Oregon. This grant proposal is due May 6th, so just over a week and a half away from submission. The first funding pool is anywhere from $5 million to $100 million, and we plan on positioning ourselves somewhere around the middle of that range. The USDA defines a climate-smart commodity as just pretty much any commodity that's produced using a practice that reduces greenhouse gas emissions or sequesters carbon. And this is not an exclusive list, but the USDA provides examples at what they find may be a climate smart practice, anywhere from cover crops to reduced tillage, nutrient management, which would also include different types of manure management, planting for high carbon sequestration rate. There's quite a list that you could come up with. If it does go outside some of these kind of examples that they give, there would be need to make sure there's a way to verify that there is a reduction in emissions or sequestering of carbon. But I am telling people that if we were given this opportunity, you can be imaginative, and as long as there's a way that we can verify the reduction of emissions or sequestering of carbon, that would be great. So the overall proposal objective is really to unify the state of Oregon and serve as a framework and model for other regions to adopt. So ideally, we would all get on the same page and make sure that we're all doing the same type of measurements, reporting them in the same way. It really would go a long way for both the state, the agricultural communities, and researchers to have a shared understanding of what's going on. And there's three main goals of our proposal. The first, we would establish a statewide grant program to assist agricultural producers with the implementation and management of climate smart practices with goal achievement verification. The second goal would to be conduct a voluntary no-cost soil health program where we would assess the current state of soil health in Oregon. So completely voluntary, and it would be no cost for as long as we have money. So whoever can use it, that will be great. With this soil health assessment, we would obviously want to focus on soil organic carbon and nitrogen stocks, as that would be fitting for this proposal opportunity. But we would also want to provide other soil health parameters so producers can use that data to help them maybe change management strategies around that data. And the last proposal goal is, in collaboration with local leaders and other organizations around the state and even the country, create market opportunities for climate smart commodities produced in Oregon. So one of the main things within this grant opportunity is you have to make sure that you are creating market opportunities, is what the USDA defines it as. But it is an integral part of each proposal. And I do think this would benefit all of our producers in our state to be recognized for the practices that they're doing to help make a better climate. So the program highlights that I kind of like to go over, some of them I've already mentioned, but some I haven't. The majority of funding will go directly to producers. The goal of this would be to reduce that financial risk and barriers that often are associated with trying to change practices. So that could include equipment, it could include helping to buy cover crop seed. There's going to be many ways that you'll be able to use the funding within this if you're a farmer or a producer. We're making it available pretty much to any agricultural commodity, such as greenhouses to farms, with the exception of timber production and aquaculture. And that's really just to create some focus on this proposal. So we're pretty much leaving it open to most producers in the state, with the exception of those two major groups. And really a lot of this is hoping that, I mean, a lot of times if you're purchasing, or if you want to purchase equipment, there's generally that cost barrier. We're trying to help knock those down and get these practices implemented across the state. I mentioned that the soil health assessment program, that would be at no cost to producers, and we would help provide recommendations based on those soil analyses. And this would also help with what's been trying to push forward in Oregon, is getting an idea of what the state of the soil health is in Oregon, as well as the current carbon stocks around our natural and working lands. Additional program highlights would include the increase in the number of weather monitoring stations in Oregon. So this would be especially applicable to southern and eastern Oregon, where there's not as much density in the weather stations currently. And this would actually help improve greenhouse gas emission estimates, as greenhouse gas emissions are directly linked to precipitation and temperature, as well as soil moisture. It would also help with managing cropping systems in these different microclimates around the state. And it would definitely help with the drought and fire monitoring, which actually also is used for crop loss insurances. So that would directly help farmers as well. And the last incentives that I kind of like to mention is that part of the market opportunities that could come out of this may include participation in carbon markets. So with this data, we're hoping that this would be the baseline understanding of, well, where is your carbon at, and would help producers realize where they could fit into carbon markets. We would also want to try to create partnerships with food processors and retailers that they have their own sustainability goals. So to tie them with our climate-smart commodities, we see as a great fit. And then we may explore, this is a strong may, explore what product labels might look like if we wanted to do a climate-smart label and trial it in Oregon. And with that, I will take questions.
I'm going to start the ball rolling, Mike, with a question which is going to take you potentially in a different direction than you were expecting, but not threatening, I don't think. I've been working with the statewide coalition for a long time, and most recently with the folks who are trying to support state agencies as they ramp up to fulfill the governor's executive order 2004, which encourages, amongst other things, carbon sequestration. Are you familiar with the Oregon Global Warming Commission's Natural and Working Lands Plan at all?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I keep myself in the loop on those meetings.
I thought you might be. The reason I raised that, because I should very quickly tell everybody else who's not necessarily so familiar. The Oregon Global Warming Commission wrote a Natural and Working Lands Plan, which was subsequent to that executive order, in which they identified carbon sequestration in our natural and working lands as a goal, and they actually identified some goals, specific tonnage goals for sequestration in our natural and working lands. And then during the legislative session, Senate Bill 1534 was proposed but didn't make it through the legislature. That bill was going to make carbon sequestration a state goal. And also it was going to try and get money to undertake a baseline inventory of carbon sequestration and carbon flux in our soils. And unfortunately, that bill died in the Ways and Means Committee. I was wondering, this is why it's a bit off tack. I was wondering, as you were talking about, Mike, the process of assessing carbon in the soils, I was wondering if the data that you anticipate getting from the farmers who are engaged in the program might be used as a substitute for the data that Senate Bill 1534 didn't manage to get funds to collect. Are you following my question?
Yeah, I'm following.
Okay.
So what I am proposing goes well beyond what the Global Warming Commission is trying to do. The funding that I'm requesting for soil analyses for the state is in the tens of millions of dollars. So to understand, I don't even think they were even approaching $500,000, if I recall correctly. So I plan on that this is gonna hit a lot more farmers, and it will go much deeper in the soils, which is also very important. We're making sure we provide a lot of funding to our farmers to help get this data, because otherwise it's going to take a while to get this level of funding. I don't even anticipate that all of this funding will hit every farmer, just because soil analyses are very expensive. The labor that goes into it is expensive. Ideally, we would partner with tech companies if we were to receive the money, that we could partner with them, whoever they may be, that may use like remote sensing technologies, that eventually we could adapt all of these physical measurements to more models, that eventually we don't have to take as many measurements. But that technology is currently still far behind, and also definitely not applicable to Oregon soils, where a lot of these technologies currently are kind of in the Midwest, where they're more homogeneous soils relative to Oregon. So we're a bit of ways off on that in Oregon, but I would hope that maybe all of the samples that we're taking here can kind of facilitate that transition. So, and what we're doing would certainly help the goals of the Global Warming Commission, and go much more beyond that.
Thank you very much. Nona, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes. And I see when you're talking about working with soils, you were saying manure, et cetera, but I didn't see anything about fertilizers. I wondered what that part of it is. The other part of that is, what size operations are you going to be looking for to work with?
So fertilizer, oh, sorry. If you
No,
have
that's,
okay.
no, that's,
So fertilizers are 100% part of the strategy, especially nitrogen-based fertilizers. If we can time those right and use them more efficiently, reduce our nitrous oxide emissions, that is definitely a goal of this proposal. And we want every farmer out there, small, big, underrepresented, historically underrepresented. This is meant for everyone. I'm just trying to pull in as much money into the state as possible, so it hits as many people as possible.
Thanks a lot. We're going to call on the very new president of Southern Oregon University, Rick Bailey. Would you like to ask your question?
Thank you so much, Alan, and great to be with all of you tonight. Thanks so much. And Dr. Badzmierowski, thank you so much for your leadership and the things that you're doing. I'm fascinated by it. The timing couldn't be better. I just went on a tour of the farm that we host at SOU. It's a 5.5 acres, actually a little bit bigger than that now. But it's providing all of the vegetables for our student food service. It's providing vegetables for the local school districts, and so it's a wonderful, wonderful project. A couple things. One, we're in. I mean, whatever we can do to help you with this project, I think we want to do it. The second, I came from northern New Mexico in January, and we led a project there at the college there called Earthshot, and it was very similar to what you want to do. It's not fully off the ground, it's still in progress, but I was working with the New Mexico State Department of Agriculture to try and work this, and with federal delegation, but similar 3-level analysis where it was going to be hands in the earth doing that soil analysis. We were going to use drones and sensors to get a certain picture. And then we actually had some interest from NASA to do NASA's Ames Research Laboratory. So I'm happy to pull that thread if you want, to try and get that level analysis and retask satellites to really help with the bigger picture for that. What are the things that that we can do for you? What are the things that we can do to assist you with this work?
Well, thank you so much for attending, Rick. First thing, it would be letters of support, and getting your letter of support would be great. Just so you're aware, I have at least reached out to some individuals at Southern Oregon University already. Vincent Smith, who's so I know I've talked with him. I feel like I've talked to someone else also at Southern Oregon University.
Vince is a superstar. So what I'll do on this is I'll reach out to Vince and make sure that I'm plugged into the letter, and we'll work on it together.
Okay, that would be great. For the purposes of like partnership for the grant, at this point, it's too late on like kind of redoing too much. But part of the thing is with being government, we can't necessarily create the same partnerships as a university could in writing this grant. But what I would say is like why I'm saying we would like to partner with tech groups is that I can't list any specifically that I would, first off, I don't even know who I would want to, but ideally if we got this money, it would be great to maybe pull some of those levers if we got that money, because I think that is the way forward on trying to reduce the labor intensity in the future, is match these data points up with some of these remote sensing technologies, these satellite groups. One of the things that I didn't really fully mention in this, because it's going more into the details, but ideally we would be setting up these greenhouse gas monitoring stations across the state to get baseline understanding of what our commodities emissions are. We really have no idea what they are on a continuous level. So we would be spending probably upwards of $300,000 per site on these monitoring stations, because that's what it takes for getting this continuous greenhouse gas data. So I think this would provide the resolution that's honestly not seen at a density in the world if we got this type of funding, because ideally we would be setting up about 13 or so of these networks with like eddy covariance chambers is what they're called, or towers. And we would want to try to put them in a variety of our different major commodities in the state. But yes, a letter of support that would at this point be the best option, just because we're down to just over a week left.
Yeah, and trust me, Doctor, I'm not asking to rework it or any of that, but I would say that we'll absolutely do the letter, and then if fingers crossed, if the money comes in and I can be of assistance in terms of leveraging NASA or some of the other players, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and I'll email you probably tomorrow, just because late in the day. I'll email you tomorrow just asking more about kind of what that work is at Earthshot, or I could just look it up. But it sounds really interesting and would go a long way in a project like this.
Awesome. Thanks
As
again for
Kathy
being here.
has noted in the chat, we have a sample letter on our actions page, and we'll that's available. And we can, anybody who's in an organization that you think might supply a letter of support to this project, go to the action page, which Kathy will tell you about towards the end, and you can have a look at the draft letter and presumably the address to which you would send that. It's a case of doing a to whom it may concern letter and sending it to Mike so he can submit it with the proposal.
Ray, did you have a
Any other
question?
questions?
I do, but I didn't want to fear with anyone else. Yes, my question would be, Mike, from the title of the request for proposals and your title, I sense that the USDA is maybe stepping forward and saying, we want another label in the American society and beyond. And that other label, the existing label is organic, and it's been very successful and it's growing. So do you see, do you feel, do you sense that the USDA is saying it's time for another label, and we can begin labeling certain food commodities as derived from healthy soils, or not?
I think they are at least exploring it based on the requests. I think there's a lot of questions that they don't know the answer to. I think there's a great opportunity for another label beyond organic.
Sure.
Because I think there's a lot of traditional practices that are still really great for production systems that if they improved their climate emissions regarding that, I think that should be recognized.
Yep.
So to me, I think this would hit a lot of communities that are traditionally left out of the organic label. I think it's going to be, and we've potentially included that in our proposal of kind of exploring that and trialing it in Oregon. That might be better though left at a national level of trying to somehow coordinate that with USDA rather than trying to each state kind of come up with its own.
Exactly. Yep. Yep, for sure.
That's why I left it as we may explore that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And
So
then
Mike,
Dale,
yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Dale, so there is a second pool of funding for less than $5 million, and that's for, those are generally geared towards historically underrepresented communities. So if you're representing that, that's due in June. Otherwise, this is a one-time funding opportunity. This may not come around again. So that's why I'm putting our best foot forward, and we're going to be requesting tens and tens of millions of dollars. We've put ourselves in that they only expect to fund about 20 to 30 projects, and our budget is within that 20 to 30 range.
So Mike, if I were a farmer and interested in this, are there things I can do now, and how would I connect in as you go forward?
So like with regards to this proposal, there's not much except for wait and see in the fall. And hopefully if we get it, I think there'll be some quite large announcements. And I think pretty much the first 6 to 9 months of the 5-year project would be outreach and engagement with stakeholders to get everyone involved before spending any of the money. Well, we would spend money on the outreach and stakeholder engagement because that just costs time and money. But we're not going to dish out any of the grants to farmers until we've made sure that we've made our rounds around the state. So everyone is aware of it and nobody is left in the dark.
Is there anybody else who has a question they would like to ask?
I have another question if no one else does.
Go ahead, Ray.
Mike, I wonder if it's worthwhile somewhere in your fabulous proposal to mention how unique the structure of Oregon's farms are. You have indeed mentioned that this proposal is for any farmer, regardless of size, and I really, really, really applaud that. There's only one other state in the whole country that has a farm ownership profile similar to that of Oregon, and I believe it's Vermont. And specifically what I'm saying is 2/3 of the Oregon farms are less than 100 acres. So we are different. We are very different. Therefore, we have a higher level of priority, because we're so different, we really can do more with this kind of funding. We are very diverse in our farm structure, and we welcome farms of all sizes with the unique commodities. We're not just selling cotton here. We're not just selling corn here, but there's like, I don't know, 280 some odd different food commodities that come out of Oregon.
Yeah, so I think the diversity alone of our commodities is the leverage that we have.
Mhm.
So granted, our cash receipts aren't necessarily the highest in the nation. We're right in the middle of the pack, but that's because we don't have the cattle or the chicken heads that a lot of these other states have. But we have the vegetable productions that other states don't have. We have the unique climate that produces the hazelnuts, the pears, the sweet cherries, the you name it commodity that other states just flat out can't produce. So I think the diversity of our systems, which is actually why we need more money, is because each system is different. And we can't just say, like in Iowa, where they're maybe just looking at corn and soybean, it would be a lot easier to scale down a project size to just focus on those crops. But because we have so many and we have so many of these different farm ownership profiles, I mean, a lot of them are family owned, have been in the family for over 100 years. So I totally agree that I think that is our leverage in this proposal, is that we're asking for a lot of money, but at the same time, we are a powerhouse in our diversity of commodities.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Mike, I'm looking around the Hollywood squares, and unfortunately, I don't see as many farmers as I would have liked to see joining us this evening, even though we have been trying to promote this as widely as we can. Are you, well, I know you are, but so I'm doing this. So my question is, how broadly are you promoting the writing of the grant across the state? And I say that because I know you have been communicating with other folks, because they've told me
Yeah,
told you.
so the 3-page proposal that I've sent around the state is, I mean, for my ability, I don't think it could go much further. So I've talked to the majority of the state commissions directly. If I haven't talked to them directly, I've at least tried to make contact with them. I've reached out to some small organizations, some other nonprofits. I've talked to at least 7 or 8 colleges and universities. So I've all the extension in Oregon State. I've really made this as I've spent more time on outreach than some of the writing for the proposal. So part of it is just making sure that this is what stakeholders want. I hope it is. I haven't received the feedback that it's not what they want. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I've definitely tried to make it as much as possible. I've talked to some individual farmers, but obviously I'm trying to hit the commissions because they represent them, and trying to talk to hundreds of people in the last month is difficult.
So Dale has an important question. He said, is there a public website that will communicate out the progress of the grant? Is there any way of following this?
I'm sure we'll probably maybe keep it, like, I think, so as the new position, we're going to create a soil health page on the Oregon Department of Agriculture website. I can keep that in mind to kind of just have an update there. I don't expect to hear back until at least September, maybe. Part of it is they've actually delayed the submission of this grant to May 6th. This was actually due a couple of weeks ago based on the original release in February. So I'll keep a tab maybe on that kind of new web page that hopefully will get launched in June. But other than that, I think if we hear of funding, we'll make sure that the state knows.
Okay, thank you. And maybe, yeah, keep us posted, because we would then, put that in our monthly announcements.
And we would like to get a link to that page on our website as well.
Yeah, but we don't expect to hear anything until at least end of summer.
Right, okay. Do we have any other questions? So from Nona, what kind of support or system can be funded to develop more farmers markets?
I think one of the questions that we're going to just be asking at the very fundamental level is, what do consumers and producers want with farmers markets? Are consumers going to go to the farmers markets if there are, and how many consumers would go? Really going down to the very basic levels of working directly with producers and consumers of what are the barriers to go into farmers markets and shopping more locally. And hopefully if we find some answers there, kind of help with that. We are putting a couple $1 million towards developing these market opportunities. So we're not quite sure what a 5-year project will lead to, but we have some at least background ideas.
Okay. Anybody else? Judy, you have a question? Go ahead and unmute.
Okay, thank you. You may have covered this already, and I'm sorry if I missed it in the beginning of your presentation. You're analyzing soil and how healthy it is. Does that fit into then a change of procedure and how it's approached, like with regenerative farming? And
I think it's going to be context to what the farmer's goals are. So, I mean, we're going to be providing the soil data to the farmers and provide consultation with, depending on their crop and their commodity. But I think it's going to be all dependent upon them on how they want to move forward on their system.
Well, the thing I think we've learned a little bit in studying this is it takes some education to maybe get a different mindset as far as farming and the more regenerative approach. What do you think about that?
Yeah, like I said, I think certain systems, there's going to be only so much you can do. There's some systems that you can do a lot of changes to, but I think it all depends on what's currently going on those practices on the farms, and just making sure that we're still producing a good crop and at the same time trying to improve our ecosystems.
Thank you.
Katie, do you have a question for Mike? You're muted, Katie.
I said I posted something in the chat, but I'm going to kind of rephrase that. Can you speak a little bit to water content in the soil and the regenerative ag and what you're working on? You know, the water for agriculture is a big issue here, and Ray Seidler and others in Cultivate Oregon offered a very in-depth Regenerative Ag Soil Symposium in 2019, which is still available for if anybody wants background information. But because good soil retains more water, I'm wondering how we can kind of work this, what you're doing, in reverse into the water summit that we're going to be hosting in the fall.
Yeah, so right now, a lot of my position is actually more outreach. This project is outside the scope of my initial position description. So a lot of this work could help with that, but at the same time, a lot of my work will be just outreach with individuals. Regarding water, I think it depends. A lot of it is dependent upon the soil properties itself, on whether or not you can increase plant available water to a certain extent. So it's going to be more applicable in the coarser textured soils than fine textured soils. So that's where it really is. It's system dependent, and I know people don't like hearing that as an answer, but everything is really in context.
I think some of your ideas are really great. Like I love the climate smart label. I think could be huge for getting people to understand more. And so I would help you in any way I can with contacts for farmers, but I'm sure you have a lot to do. So thank you. It sounds pretty fantastic. Actually, I was also going to say one of the things we ran into, it was farmers just feeling kind of overwhelmed and not being able to access the kind of equipment they need. We even sort of explored an equipment run, kind of a way for them to access the things that they need. So that grant, if ODA takes it on or does fund it, could make a huge difference in Southern Oregon, where our agriculture is really pretty much under siege from many directions, not just water, real estate development, pricing, just many factors. So thanks for
yeah, not a problem. That's the goal of this program, is help with breaking down those barriers and get some more equipment out to people.
Okay,
All
well,
right.
yeah, thanks very
for-
much indeed, Mike, for taking the time to come and talk to us. I'm sorry we didn't manage to engage more farmers who might have been
No,
looking at you and
it's okay.
saying, give me the money, give me the money. But we do appreciate your helping us understand. And I just wanted to round out by just underlining for folks, and I'm guessing most folks here will understand what I'm about to say. But as we look at the climate crisis, one of the things that we understand is if we are to achieve the limit of 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial temperature levels, then we not only need to reduce our emissions, but we also need to practice activities that will suck carbon out of the atmosphere. And not surprisingly, one of the basic reasons that we were intrigued by what Mike was developing was because it exactly does that, and it incentivizes farmers to do what we know we need collectively to do. One of the things that we are very concerned about as we promote climate action in Oregon is the efforts to create the impression that addressing climate is just something that the Portland people care about. What we're trying to do is stress that addressing the climate crisis is something that can benefit rural Oregon. And Mike's grant and the opportunities that it will provide, let's hope it comes through, will be fantastic contributors to our effort to get carbon sequestration going in Oregon.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me. And I'll keep everyone in touch as I learn more.
Thank you very much, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Have a good one.
Thank you. What I've done on the website, if you go to socan.eco/action, and then under the column where individual actions are listed, there's a heading cultivation, and then the title is regenerative agriculture. And there is a copy of the proposal that Mike mentioned, and also the sample of the letters of support that people can use to write something supporting that proposal.
There is a sample that Mike shared with us, and we will put the SOCAN letter there. So anybody who's interested in writing a letter can go there and plagiarize freely.
Right.
And Kathy, yes, Kathy Allen, at that same spot, could you put the link to the recording as well?
Yes,
Yes.
will do. Okay. So I'm going to just briefly go through SOCAN activities and invite you to join us for any of these. SOCAN sends out a broadcast and a reminder each month. And if you are not on that email list and would like to be, if you go to the main page, socan.eco, and on the right side, you'll see a place to sign up for that. And we send out 2 or 3 emails per month. We would like to announce, if you don't know, that SOCAN is turning 10. 10 years ago, SOCAN brought climate consciousness to Southern Oregon, and we invite you to celebrate with us a decade of grassroots climate advocacy as we look at SOCAN yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So the date is September 17th at 5 p.m. It'll be at the Hilton Garden Inn in Medford, and more details will be forthcoming in the broadcasts and through other methods.
So please sign up for the broadcast so you can find out more about coming to our celebration. We really, really invite everybody to join us.
SOCAN has 5 different programs, and then we have projects under each of those programs. So in the community engagement program, tomorrow, the Coastal SOCAN is holding their monthly meeting. It'll be on Zoom, so anybody is invited to join us. And they will be showing the newly released movie, The Revolution Generation. So if you go to the SOCAN calendar, you'll get the link to register. But that, I think, is going to be a really exciting movie to watch.
You mentioned Kiss the Ground.
The people that have produced that are the same people who produced Kiss the Ground, if you are familiar with that one. The Ashland Climate Action Project is one of the projects under the government program, and their meeting is on Thursday, again, Zoom, everybody's invited. This is the 3rd in a series about natural gas, and this one examines the future of natural gas. Again, the link for this is on the SOCAN calendar. Next month, SOCAN's monthly meeting is going to be in collaboration with Unite Oregon, and we're calling it Climate Justice 101. So a presentation to help us better understand issues that happen with some people that we may not know as well as we should. And the link for that is also on the calendar. The government program has a federal and state project that will meet Monday, May 9th from 2 to 3:30 and is a Zoom meeting. Again, the link is on the calendar. Another project under the government program is the County City Project, and the main meeting where the different action teams report what they're doing is on Thursday, May 26th, and that is a Zoom meeting. 2 of the action teams are having meetings in May. On the 6th of May, the Medford action team will meet, and that will be a Zoom meeting. The Jacksonville action team meets on Monday, May 9th, and that is in person at the Jacksonville Public Library. The Natural Resources Program has a Forest and Fire Project, and this group will meet on Wednesday, May 18th. again, Zoom meeting, and the link is on the calendar. Under the education program, the Master Climate Protector course for 2022 is over. So the next course will start in February of 2023. If you sign up at this point, you're signing up just to get information about that as details are worked out. The education program would also like to let you know that we applied for a grant with the Oregon Health Authority, and it was funded, fully funded. It's promoting understanding of climate change, its health effects, and appropriate responses among rural, Latino, high school students. And this grant was submitted by SOCAN, UNITE, and Southern Oregon Land Conservancy. We just received notice that it was funded, and we're very excited about the work that we're going to do with this grant. There are other projects that don't have current meetings, but if you're interested under education with climate in the classroom presentations or things with transportation, if I go through these too quickly and you can't catch the person to contact, just send me an email and I'll connect you with the appropriate person. There are also other programs under natural resources that include water management and conservation and offshore wind. And under community engagement, we also are working with fire recovery, have a media corps and a rapid response team, and a businesses taking action project. The leadership circle is made up of the people that lead the different projects, and that group will meet on Wednesday, May 11th. But anybody is welcome to come to that. And if you choose to do that, it gives you a perspective of the different things that are happening in SOCAN that you might be interested in working with. This is a Zoom meeting, and again, the link is on the calendar. Just a couple of announcements from other groups that are working in the climate change arena. The movie Youth v. Gov is being shown by Rogue Valley Voice and some people that are working with them, and they have invited us to join them to see that. And that is, go ahead, Alan.
I was just going to say that is a film about our Children's Trust, which is based in Eugene. And you have probably heard about their efforts to stimulate the kids to file suits against governments, demanding that the governments at the state and federal level honor their commitment, their trust that to manage our environment for future generations.
The pollinator project Rogue Valley is having a native plant sale for the pollinators. That's this Sunday, May 1st, and it's in the parking lot behind the pollinator place in Phoenix. The 29th annual Southern Oregon Native American Student Union Powwow is on May 21st. And this is going to be at Phoenix High School Stadium. The grand entry will happen at both noon and 6 p.m., but the event goes from noon until 7:30. And SOCAN is very pleased to be a sponsor of this event. ROCPAC is Rural Oregon Climate Political Action Committee, the voice for climate action for rural Oregon, and their website is rockpac.org if you can support them as they represent us in the legislature. So a big thanks to our speaker, Mike
Badzmierowski.
He said, just say it like it looks, it's the same. So we really appreciate him taking the time, especially with as close as he is to deadlines on the grant, to be able to share with us. And we hope that we can support him as they go forward. Thanks to all of you for joining us. And my hope is that you learned enough that you can talk to other people about this. we talk about regenerative agriculture and healthy soil, but unless we can get some money into it, our farmers are not going to be able to do what they need to do. So again, go to socan.eco/action, and then under the individual action, look for the place with regenerative agriculture. And the links are there if you want those to have to share with others. I sent a survey in an email that you should have in your inbox. Really appreciate any comments that you can take time to make. Our website is socan.eco, and questions, info@socan.eco. And if you're able, please consider supporting us financially. That's what keeps us going to do the work that we want to do. So I'd like to thank you all for being here this evening. And if you have questions and want to follow up with anything, please let us know. We will have the video of this available within the week, and it'll be posted on the SOCAN website. The link will be posted there.